Hey, the holidays are upon us. And if you're thinking about hostessing, if you're thinking about all the things you have to take care of, the details, the stuff, I would suggest that you check out Wayfair because they have what you need. They really do. And they are great items for every style. If you're having a more fancy holiday, if you're more casual, I am hosting Thanksgiving. I definitely need some new tablecloths and linen napkins. And I think I'm going to replace a few throw pillows. So go to Wayfair, look at the items they have. The shipping is free, even if you order a big, huge piece of furniture. Easy delivery, easy returns. They've got Christmas trees, wreaths. They've got inflatables. They've got lamps. They've got blankets. They've got stuff for your bathroom. Do you need to freshen things up? Do you need a new bath mat? Do you need a new shower curtain? Wayfair is the place to go to help you find everything you need to pull your holidays together. Get organized, refreshed, and ready for the holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. It really is okay for you to start saying the part of you that we need to pay attention to, the part of you that I am not going to put in charge anymore, is the part of you that's the volcano. When something doesn't go your way and you erupt like a volcano, when you do X, Y, and Z, I am not going to respond to it, and I am not going to negotiate it with it, and I am not going to give it what it wants.
Welcome to Season 8 of Flusterclux with Lynn Lyons, where we talk about managing worry, anxiety, and all the other emotions too.
I'm Lynn Lyons. I'm an anxiety expert, author, speaker, and mom. I've been a therapist for 35 years, and I'm still in the trenches with families, helping them navigate daily struggles and big problems. Parenting can be a flusterclux, but we tackle the serious stuff without being too serious.
I'm Robin. I'm Lynn's sister-in-law and co-host, and I'm here to ask your questions.
And I'm Ed, the producer of Flusterclux.
And my brother.
And my husband.
Anxiety is a family problem with a family solution. Hey, Robin.
Hey, Lynn.
How are you today?
It's a beautiful fall day, my favorite time of year.
I know, it is a beautiful fall day. We haven't turned our heat on yet. Have you turned on your heat?
No, it's that perfect New England shoulder season.
I know this is what we do in New England too, is that you try and keep your heat turned off for as long as possible. I have my heat on in my office because other people are coming to see me.
I mean, I suppose there's like a hardiness Yankee pride of delaying the heat turn on.
Right, because you're from Tulsa.
No. You know that this is not me. This is my chilly husband.
Oh, right. You do have a chilly husband.
So I am free of this one.
Yeah.
So we have another listener question today that brings up on a meta level a theme that I think a lot of families relate to before we get too specific about this one. I remember the first time you told me this. With anxious families, the denial of the anxiety is often a big issue that you have to work with them on, regardless of age.
And then the second part of that is that I don't really care if the kid is denying that it's anxiety. People get too stuck in this idea that we have to call it this or we have to address it. Your kid is spitting on you. Well, it's because of their anxiety. I don't care they're spitting on you. You have to address the behavior too. So lots of times we understand there's rigidity. We understand that there's some anxiety. We can understand that there's some fear. But sometimes this whole sort of like, well, I have to get my child to understand all of this, not so necessary. And that's kind of the big picture here. Say we've got kids that have a combination of something. So you've got a kid who's got anxiety and they also have ADHD, or you've got a kid who's on the spectrum who has some anxiety. We really have to look very simply. And again, it's always hard work, but it's not complicated work, is what are the patterns that we're trying to interrupt? And what are the things that we are doing that are not working? And what are the things that we're doing that are working? I talk to families all the time, and I've talked on this podcast a lot about consistent responses. And I don't want parents to be overreactive. I don't want them to feel as if they're being mean. I don't want them to be dismissive, but they have to be consistent. And when there is a pattern that's happening over and over and over again, oftentimes there's a lot of talking, a lot of explaining, a lot of a parent trying to really be empathic, which is nice, but it can muddy the waters, and a lot of trying different things in an inconsistent way. So what is the inconsistency that we see, and the talking too much, and sometimes we just have to get back to basics.
I think it's interesting as you say this, and for the listeners who've read your books and really followed you, there are just like some key points that it's just always nice to have Lynn sort of customize the thing for us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like, it's just so nice when you tell us what to do. Being able to sort of think of all of this and apply it to your situation is a skill, and it's a hard skill. And some people aren't going to ever sort of figure that out. Other people might figure it out, but we like our cheat sheets, Lynn.
I know. And it is hard to be consistent. And I know that and as we'll read with this listener question, right? You feel sorry for your child and they're struggling and it's late and because this is happening at bedtime. I was just saying to somebody, I've inherited this poodle, and she is very good. She's become like a very good source of metaphors for me, this little poodle, who's very well behaved and really, really smart. She figured out in about 3 days that if she comes to me to beg, I give her things. If she comes to my husband to beg, he gives her nothing. She does not beg from him at all. She comes to me because she has figured out who is the one who's intermittently reinforcing her behavior, who is the one who is saying, not going to happen, my husband. She is a poodle. It took her 3 days to figure out who's consistent and who's not. And I'm pretty sure that most people's kids are at least as smart as this poodle.
Here is the listener question.
All right.
Hi, Lynn and Robin. I'm a loyal listener of the show, so she should really know what you keep talking about. My 7-year-old son fully and consistently denies his anxiety. I've been consistently applying your strategies for years, but my son continues denying that anything is happening at all, and I will explain. He tends to scream and become quite aggressive when he's anxious. At bedtime, he wishes someone would just stay with him until he falls asleep. Instead, we tuck him in, we check on him from time to time. He can handle it in small doses, but when we don't come as quickly as he wishes, he becomes very angry. He screams, calls us names, says we never check on him. When we do return to the room, he will grab us and hold on, and he won't let go as he continues screaming, sometimes continuing to call us names. I know not to try to teach him in that moment. I tend to either stay quiet or say, your worry monster is so upset right now and is really taking over, or something like that. But during calm times outside the moment, I've tried repeatedly to talk with him about how that behavior is due to his anxiety. He responds either with that he doesn't remember what I'm talking about or that it didn't happen. So I've also tried a few side door approaches to the conversation. I've tried reading him books about worry monsters. I've tried talking to him about my own worry monster. Sometimes he listens, but when I try talking with him in any way about his own worry, he says he doesn't worry about anything. Is there anything that I can do to help break through this denial? And for a long time, I thought it was shame that caused him to deny his worry and aggressive behavior. But I've come to think that he really doesn't understand what I'm talking about.
Okay, so this is such a good question because it gives me the opportunity to differentiate between worry behavior, anxious behavior, and aggressive behavior. And when we don't address the aggressive name calling, hitting, etc., and we keep trying to explain about worry, we're not really going to get anywhere. Let's take a break, and I'm going to break this down so that we can begin to have a clearer approach. What do you do when your anxious kid is also being mean, nasty, aggressive, all that stuff? Hey, when I was little, we had a lemonade stand. And we made so much money on that lemonade stand. We were so smart with our little business. And I think we were smart with our money too. Having parents that talked about money, that gave us money skills, really has served me very well throughout my life. Do you want your kids to be smart about money? I think you do. Acorns Early is the smart debit card and money app that grows kids' money skills as they grow up. You can help your kids learn the value of a dollar. We just did an episode on the importance of contributing in a household, giving kids a sense of how to make and develop good, healthy money habits. Are you ready to teach your kids the smart way to earn, save, and spend? Get your first month on us when you head to acornsearly.com/fluster or download the Acorns Early app. That's 1 month free when you sign up at acornsearly.com/fluster. Acorns Early card is issued by Community Federal Savings Bank, member FDIC, pursuant to license by MasterCard International. Free trial for new subscribers only. Subscription fee starting from $5 per month unless canceled. Terms apply at acorns.com/early terms. So you hear me talk about it all the time. The stress of homework, of helping your kids after school. You guys are tired. There's activities. It's not always easy to sit down and provide that one-on-one help. And sometimes you're not the best person to do it. Wyzant is the nation's largest network of tutors trusted by parents nationwide. With more than 65,000 expert tutors around 350 subjects, Wyzant makes it easy to get personalized, one-on-one online support that fits your schedule and your budget. Every lesson is tailored to your child's needs, goals, and learning style. Tutors meet students where they are, whether they're preparing for college essays, tackling algebra or chemistry, or building study skills. Lessons are online from the comfort of home and scheduled around your family's busy routine. So evenings, weekends, after practice, Wyzant makes tutoring work for you. Help your child succeed in school and boost their confidence with Wyzant. Go to wyzant.com, that's WYZANT.com, and book your first lesson today. And just for Flusterclux listeners, use the code podcast15 to enjoy $15 off your first lesson. Visit wyzant.com and give your child the tools they need to thrive. All right, everybody, fall is here. And with it comes cooler nights and heartier meals and craving for that something that's just warm and satisfying. That's where HelloFresh comes in, bringing you comforting, chef-designed recipes and fresh seasonal ingredients right to your door. This season, they've taken things to the next level with their biggest menu refresh yet. So say hello to a whole new way to do dinner. I am fresh off the most delicious pork dish. We had a beef dish. The selections, it's hard to make up your mind. So healthy, so easy to prepare. Include your kids in the cooking. It's a great way to get them involved. The best way to cook just got better. Go to HelloFresh.com/Flusterclux10FM now to get 10 free meals plus a free item for life. 1 per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's HelloFresh.com/Flusterclux10FM to get 10 free meals and a free item for life. Okay, we're back. All right, 7 years old. He's little. He's 7. And this mom says she's been applying my strategies for years. If you have a child who you keep talking about worry, they have anxiety, they have worry, and maybe as a parent, you are crystal clear about the fact that this behavior comes out when they are worried. Okay? You get it. You understand it. And you keep trying to explain, this is worry. This is your anxiety. And they're not getting it. And they're saying, what are you talking about? And this mom says, I'm beginning to think maybe he just doesn't understand what I'm talking about. Then you've got to change your language. And it is really okay to stop even referring to it as worry and anxiety and refer to it as explosive behavior, or refer to it as yelling and screaming, or refer to it as you're being rigid, or you're being like a grenade, whatever you want to use. I like to pull out the worry and give it a name. So we say, okay, so you have this worry and we've pulled it out and we've named it Frank. And they're like, what are you talking about? What's this worry thing? What are you talking about? Well, give it a different name. Not Frank, but say, we're going to pull out your anger. We're going to pull out your volcano. I had one little girl who we used to call it her volcano. And you start addressing the behavior and you stop explaining so much. Say, for example, we've got this 7-year-old And he has an idea of how he wants his bedtime to go. So he wants you to probably sleep with him, to lay down with him, to come in and check on him every minute. He doesn't want to be alone in his bedroom. And you've explained to him when your worry shows up, when Frank shows up, Frank tells you you can't handle it. And he's like, what are you talking about? This isn't worry. This is, I want you in my bedroom. He's being very concrete in his thinking, right? He's like, what are you talking about, this worry thing?
Over time, when you talked about rigidity, I think that it's really easy to explain to kids. Rigidity is when things don't go your way. So bedtime's not going your way. He doesn't need to hear the word rigidity. When things don't go your way, your volcano shows up.
Yep. And when you do things, when your volcano shows up, when your rigidity, right, whatever you want to call it, when it shows up, you do things that we're not really going to do in this family. A lot of times parents will say to me, well, I know she's hitting me because she's anxious, or I know she's kicking me because she's anxious, or I know she's swearing at me because she's anxious. Those behaviors don't fly anywhere. And what's interesting too to think about, parents, is do your kids do those things in other settings? So if things don't go the way at school, does your child explode? If things don't go the way they want them to go with their friends, does your child explode? You really want to address the behavior of exploding when things don't go the way you want them to go.
And a quiz for the adults. If you're on a plane going to see a grandparent and the captain says there's going to be a delay in the flight, are either of the adults in the family going to have a volcano show up?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah. And modeling is huge. What you want to say to him, I would say, let's put a moratorium on the anxiety and the worry talk. Because you said you've been talking about it for years. And he's like, what are you talking about? And start talking very directly and very clearly about the behavior. So here's what we're going to do. At bedtime, mommy and daddy put you into bed. We tuck you in. And it is your job to fall asleep in your bed. Now, you may have all sorts of thoughts and feelings at bedtime, and you may want bedtime to go a certain way. But here's how it's going to go. We're going to tuck you in, give you a kiss goodnight, and we're going to leave. And in 5 minutes, we'll come and put our head in the door. Now, here's the other thing, too, about this. If he's in bed and he's grabbing on and holding on to you, you're going way too far into the room. There's too much contact. There's too much discussion. There's too much of your presence. You are to stick your head, come to the door, and say, I'm just checking in on you, like I said. Good night. I love you. And then you leave. If his understanding right now is that there's an interaction, there's an engagement, there's a discussion, there's an argument, there's a wrestling match, too much engagement. And then you leave, and 5 minutes later, and he yells, you are not doing it the way I want you to do it. You better come back in here. Whatever he says, he starts calling you names. I'm not doing this. You're the worst parents ever. Blah, 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 blah. That's when you don't respond. Like you say, that's not the time to teach him anything. But it doesn't mean that you re-engage with him, that you have a conversation with him. You stick to the plan. The skill you are trying to teach him is the ability to stay in his bed and to fall asleep. So you may say to him, if you can't fall asleep, you have a flashlight, no screens, but you have a flashlight, you have a book to look at, you can color, you can play with your stuffed animals, whatever, but you are to stay in your room, and we do not tolerate you screaming and yelling. So the check-ins with him need to be about 4 seconds long. You come to the door and say, we're just checking in on you. And then if he screams and yells, let him scream and yell. You don't come back and re-engage, because what you are teaching him is that screaming and yelling and exploding is the way to get you back into the room. And again, you don't have to be mean. You can be warm. You can be loving. But as long as he knows that when he is feeling anxious or feeling fill in the blank, the way to get your attention, the way to get you back, the way to re-engage you is to scream and yell and carry on, he's going to keep doing it, because that's what works. Outside of the bedtime thing, when you're talking about wanting to have him understand about his worry and anxiety and reading him books about worry and anxiety, and he's saying to you, I'm not worried about things. it could be because he's not experiencing it as worry. He may be experiencing it as, I'm scared to be in the dark in my bedroom at night, but he doesn't understand what this word worry means or this word anxiety means. So you can just leave that aside. There is no need for you to continue to talk to him about his worry and his anxiety and read books about worry and anxiety if that's not resonating with him. It may when he's 10, but it's not resonating with him now.
One question I have for you is that, we talk about the volcano, and it's hard to believe that a 7-year-old wouldn't understand. Look, sometimes things don't go your way, and you have a volcano part of you that shows up that gets really, really mad. That feels pretty easy for a 7-year-old to grasp. He's in the conversation now. Is there anything to reference that volcano at bedtime or no?
Say the mom does her check and he starts saying like, you need to come in right now. You can say, that's your volcano and I am checking in with you. Or you can say nothing. You can just say, this is the plan. I'm checking in with you. I'll be back in 10 minutes. So I would really very much minimize any discussion in the middle of the volcano at the bedtime. Do what the plan is. Here's what we do. I'm checking in with you. I love you. I'll be back in 5 minutes. And then everything else that he does in the course of that next 5 minutes, it doesn't say in this listener question that he gets out of his room and comes running out and that kind of stuff. Just follow the plan and let all that noise be noise. Let all that anger and yelling be anger and yelling and see what happens. If you want to talk to him about it later and you're saying to him, you get really angry and you explode and you turn into a volcano, it's probably less likely that he's going to say, no, I don't. But if he does, I don't care. If he says, I don't do that, you can say, well, we both know that's not true. Yesterday, you yelled and screamed for a long time and you said this. Just like if your child comes to you and you say, don't eat the brownies, and your child comes to you and has chocolate all over their face. And I said, don't eat the brownies. Those were for the bake sale. And they're like, I didn't eat the brownies. You don't get into this big, long discussion with them about whether or not they ate the brownies. It's on their face. So you don't have to keep explaining yourself. You're spending a lot of time trying to convince him that this is what's going on with him or this is what he's doing. He also knows he's doing it. He's not completely amnesic to the fact that he screams at you guys at night when you don't come into the bedroom. He knows it. You say, I just saw you hit your brother. I didn't hit my brother. I just saw you do it. Adults do it all the time too, by the way.
My kids are older, so I don't know the answer to this. At what age would you say you start having this conversation with him? Look, you have this volcano thing that I think is a problem that isn't helping you and it's not making you happy. So when things don't go your way, you have this volcano. It shows up at bedtime and I bet it shows up in other places. But the thing is, it's my job as your parent to teach you really important skills, build your muscles of skills. And obviously when adults have volcanoes that erupt, it doesn't go well for them. So what do you think you could do between now and your 10th birthday to show that you're like, I am big and strong and able to manage my volcano? I guess he has to buy in, like, yeah, I have a volcano, and he's making it hard, maybe denying the volcano. When do you say, like, it's on you to manage your volcano? You have a choice. It's ultimately the same process that you teach, but it's shifting the language in a way that he has accountability. He gets some distance from the behavior potentially.
Yeah, I mean, she should be having that conversation with him now. I mean, I think what you're picking up on and what I'm saying is that trying to get him to understand or put this in the context of this is your worry, this is your anxiety, and he keeps saying, no, it's not, I don't know what you're talking about, then just shift to the concrete behavior that everybody sees and everybody hears. It would be interesting. It didn't say this in the letter, in the question, but I wonder, does it happen in other places? At school, if he doesn't, where is his rigidity showing up? If at school, if the teacher says we have to do this, does he get really explosive? Does he get really angry? Does it happen when he's playing with friends? Does it happen when you say to him, come on, we have to pick up your toys because we have to get ready to go to grandma's house? How often is he explosive and how often is he rigid? So that conversation can start to happen now. In my office, I have a few stories that I trot out on a fairly regular basis about when I was a kid being with another child that was explosive when they didn't get their way and what it was like to be around that child. Now, I don't know if this kid had anxiety or not when I was 12 and she was throwing a temper tantrum, but it really is okay for you to start saying the part of you that we need to pay attention to and the part of you that I am not going to put in charge anymore is the part of you that's the volcano. So when something doesn't go your way and you erupt like a volcano, when you do X, Y, and Z, I am not going to respond to it and I am not going to negotiate it with it and I am not going to give it what it wants. At 7, you can begin to use that language. If we look at this in terms of an adult, so say you're married to somebody and when things don't go their way, they explode. So say you say, hey, we need to be at my aunt's house for the brunch at 11. And your partner is like, I'm not going to brunch. That's stupid. I hate your aunt anyway. I mean, she's probably going to serve those dry scrambled eggs. And would you be like, oh, that's your worry. That's your anxiety. Right? Let's read a book about it. No, you'd be like, dude, I get that you don't want to go to the brunch, but you don't have to scream and yell at me about it. Now, could they have social anxiety that they're very anxious about going over to your aunt's house for brunch? Maybe, but you're not going to tolerate that. Say you're like, look, we're going to go through a car wash. Your spouse is like, I'm getting out of this car right now. I'm going to jump out of this car. How dare you take me to the car wash? You might be like, oh, do you have a phobia of car washes? Oh, okay, let's talk about that. Like at some point you're like, okay, look, if you don't want to go to the car wash, like use your words, pal. You're a grown up. So I'm giving these extreme examples, but what I hear a lot is there is behavior that is not going to work out. It's not going to work out when you're 7. It's not going to work out when you're 10. It's not going to work out when you're 30. And parents saying, I just keep needing to explain to him why he's having this behavior. I need to get him to understand this behavior. That may come in time, but you also need to address the behavior. And you also need to be clear that you are not going to buy into the behavior.
I hope the mom who wrote us sort of has a realization that, and true, we don't have more information. We have just that letter. But if she's a worrier, but she's got a rigid, uncooked piece of spaghetti kid, she has to sort of accept how they are different so that the language and the approach is really custom to the pattern.
Right. And I say this all the time. I don't care what you call it. I mean, this is not the first time I've heard this where parents say like, well, when I talk about the worry or I say they're anxious, it doesn't really make sense to them. They're not really, because the way they see worry is, oh, I'm so worried. They don't see it as like, I'm not doing this. I said, I don't care what you call it. You can call it peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We're talking about the part of them that is not capable of tolerating blank. So tolerating being in bed, tolerating going to school, tolerating getting on the school bus, the ability to tolerate uncertainty, tolerate discomfort, and that really, really big skill is the ability to do things when you don't feel like it. So when you have kids that are rigid, when they're oppositional, there's probably a reason. There's this diagnosis called oppositional defiant disorder, which I hate and a lot of people hate. It's just a description of behavior. And parents will be like, oh, my child was diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder. They have this thing called, it's like, no, that's just a behavior of being defiant. Let's figure out how are we going to change the patterns. And for some kids, it's easier than others. But how are we going to change the patterns? I don't care what you call it. Months and months and months, he's been saying, I don't know what you're talking about. Then call it something else. And don't get thrown by him saying, oh, I don't do that. You just say, well, yeah, you do. And then you move on. If you have a coworker that throws pens at people's heads and then you address it with them and they go like, I don't do it. You go, yeah, you do. So let's move on. Let's talk about it. You just don't buy into the denial. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to go over it. You need to be really concrete and really consistent and engage less when that behavior is happening.
We're going to take a break, but when we come back, I want to get back into the semantics with you because I think that everyone could use a refresher after this episode on what is worry and what is anxiety because they're actually not the same thing. So we'll take a break.
Correct. Hey, everybody. The kids are back in school. The vacations are over. It's officially the start of the cozy season, which means you need your Bombas socks and your slippers. They have the most comfortable socks, slippers, tees, and underwear out there. They're made from premium materials like merino wool that keeps you warm when it's chilly but cool when it's hot. Supima cotton, it's softer and stronger and more breathable than regular cotton. And even rag wool, the thick, durable, classic cozy sock that you'll want all fall. For every item you buy, Bombas donates one to someone experiencing homelessness. Over 150 million items have been donated thanks to customers. If you're not satisfied, 100% guarantee they'll make it right. There's no risk and all reward. I love my Bombas socks. I wear them every time I go to the gym. I love them. I wear them hiking. They last and last and last. In fact, I just got back from a hike wearing my Bombas compression socks. Head over to bombas.com/audio and use code AUDIO for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/audio. Code AUDIO at checkout. Okay, it's getting colder outside. Calling for those layers, those cozy, warm sweaters, those fall coats that look so fantastic. Luckily, Quince makes it easy to look polished, to stay warm, and to save big without compromising on quality. Think Mongolian cashmere, $50. Or denim. Denim's back, everybody. How about those great coats that you need to look fabulous, but also keep you warm and toasty? If you wear t-shirts like I do, I already have several of their t-shirts. They have a cotton modal scoop t-neck 3-pack, 3 high-quality t-shirts for $36. And Quince partners directly with top-tier ethical factories and cuts out the middlemen. They deliver luxury quality at half the price of similar brands. It's the kind of wardrobe upgrade that feels smart and stylish and effortless. So find your fall staples at Quince. Go to quince.com/fluster for free shipping in your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/fluster to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/fluster.
When it comes to what your family eats and drinks, you know your choices matter. You're the expert because you know what fits your life. And getting it right starts with good information. That's why America's beverage companies are sharing more information about our ingredients at goodtoknowfacts.org. No spin, no judgments, just the facts straight from the experts for more than 140 beverage ingredients. Visit goodtoknowfacts.org.
Okay, so now back to the show.
So one of the things I just want to unpack and get a refresher on for myself and for the listeners is that worry is actually a subset of anxiety. And I think that's important for people to understand.
The definition of worry is that it is a cognitive process in which you are having thoughts and telling stories and creating the scenarios. So worried about my son, or I'm worried that I'm going to lose my job, or I'm worried about the weather when we have a picnic. So we're thinking about it. We're creating these stories. And anxiety is that larger term that actually describes the physical and mental processes that happen to us. And oftentimes people focus on the physical. But when that fight or flight system gets activated, fight or flight or freeze, gets activated, not when we're in a life-threatening situation, but when our brain and our body believe that we are. So that David Barlow definition that I love so much, anxiety is an overreaction to the problem and an underreaction to the resources to handle it. Anxiety is promoting something to an emergency that's not an emergency. And we often do that by worrying about something and creating a story that then promotes it to an emergency. So the obvious example is that you look and you have a bump on your hand and you go, oh gosh, that's a bump. And then your worry says, what do you think it is? Do you think it's cancer? Oh my God, what's going on? Do you think you should? Oh, I knew somebody once that had a bump on their hand and then they ended up losing their hand. Oh my gosh, what is that? And then your brain is hearing all of this danger talk, and then your brain fires up and gets your body going. Or you send a text to somebody and they don't respond immediately. And so you start worrying and you start creating the story. Like, oh my gosh, why didn't they respond? Are they mad at me? Did they get in an accident? Are they about to break up with me? Blah, blah, all the stories. And then all that danger talk, all that worrying fires up the body so that you start getting these symptoms. And I've said this before, but somebody said to me, oh, anxiety, fear is false evidence appearing real. No, fear is an emotion that we have. Fear is a response that we have. Fear is not false evidence. Anxiety is false evidence appearing real.
There's this whole other part of anxiety, though, that I didn't realize and connect with until you explained it, though, is that it's really about discomfort and uncertainty. So uncertainty is obviously what you just described, but the discomfort piece is huge because that's where all of the rigidity and control issues come up with people.
That's right. That's why I'm so adamant about staying away from these elimination strategies, things that we're trying to do. So whenever you're trying to create certainty and create comfort to the extreme, because of course, like you and I plan to record today, so there's certainty in our schedule and we want to plan, we have to move through our day. But it's these attempts to make sure that everything goes as planned and that I feel comfortable all the time. And that's how anxiety gets stronger, because it's the inability to tolerate uncertainty, the inability to tolerate discomfort. There are some people temperamentally that are far more sensitive to discomfort and far more sensitive to uncertainty than others. People have different sensitivities about things. But when we're looking at how do we help our kids with their worry, their anxiety, their rigidity, it's how do I help them become more capable of tolerating fill in the blank. You know, when I hear things like rejection sensitive dysphoria, they're like, oh, this is that a child, and they say, you know, kids with ADHD are more prone to this. They're more sensitive to rejection. And so then we give it a name, and then people are like, oh, my child has rejection sensitive dysphoria. No, they're a kid that temperamentally has a really hard time with rejection. Maybe because they've been rejected a lot and they're trying really hard to make friends and it's difficult for them. Maybe they're just really a super empathic and sensitive person. Maybe connection is really, really important to them and they hate feeling left out, which most people do. It's always about how do we help you tolerate the thing that is difficult for you. And that's what allows us to move through the world, because the world doesn't accommodate our difficulties very often. And requiring the world to do that just feeds into this idea that you can't handle it. So when we're talking about this 7-year-old, we want him to learn the ability to tolerate being in his room by himself, or the ability to tolerate his parents setting a limit, or the ability to tolerate when things don't go his way. It's being played out at bedtime, but it's a skill that we want him to have in virtually every other area of his life. Just like you say, you're sitting on an airplane and they say the flight is delayed, the ability to tolerate now that your plans are going to be changed. Without that, life is very difficult. Relationships are really difficult, and you feel a lot of uncomfortable symptoms.
Yeah. The first time I was on a flight, I'll never forget, like the first time I was sitting next to someone who had like a total volcano freak out because the captain had announced a delay. And I just wanted to say to him, dude, what are you going to do?
Yeah. What are you going to get from this? How is this going to play out? I mean, the problem is that if kids, you know, they're little, they don't know how to do all this stuff yet. They don't have the ability to manage all these things. And so we have to teach them and we have to give them opportunities to work through it. And when you see somebody who, as an adult, has never figured out that having a temper tantrum on an airplane is not going to do anything, it makes me wonder, do you have temper tantrums in other places that then you get what you want? Or has anybody ever explained to you that this is a bad long-term plan? Did they explain it to you when you were 7? Did they explain it to you when you were 15? And there are a lot of people who go through the world thinking that when something doesn't go my way, a big reaction is what is required in order for me to feel better. And it doesn't work out very well for people. As we know, you see it all the time. My younger son, who's 25 now, we used to call him the London air raid siren, because when he would get upset, he would go like that. And I used to say to him, you are going to be upset for as long as you want to be upset. I'm going to stand here. I'm going to wait. But the answer is no. And that's all I'd say. And then I would sometimes have to wait him out. But he learned pretty quickly, because he's smarter than a poodle, that screaming and yelling was not going to get him what he wanted. He needed to mature into that a little bit, because toddlers don't have good emotional management. And now he's really good as a young adult of tolerating when things don't go his way, because it happens to him all the time, because it happens to us. It happens to people all the time. That's what we want to pay attention to. Thanks for listening. And if you found this podcast helpful, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It helps other people find this information.
And if you'd like to dig deeper on any of these topics, we have specialized playlists on our Spotify profile, and the link is in the show notes. Topics like teens, depression, and OCD. Bye, Lynn.
Bye, Robin.
Rinse takes your laundry and hand delivers it to your door, expertly cleaned and folded. So you could take the time once spent folding and sorting and waiting to finally pursue a whole new version of you. Like Tea Time You. Or this Tea Time You. Or even this Tea Time You.
So did you hear about Dave?
Or even Tea Time You.
So update on Dave.
It's up to you. We'll take the laundry. Rinse. It's time to be great.